Sinitta, thank you for joining me. I have been a fan for a long time because you've been around for a long time. Let's face it, you've had 4 decades in the public eye. Let's talk about that because you got started really young, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. So I started in musical theatre because my mother was in. My mother, Michael Brown, was big in the West End and all over the world. And so I grew up kind of in dressing rooms, backstage, trying on the costumes and the makeup and thinking, I want to do this when I grow up too. I kind of grew up always knowing that I wanted to be on stage because I grew up with my mother on stage, traveling the world with her, sitting in her dressing rooms, trying on the makeup and the costumes, and my aunt as well. So I had my
Which is
mother who,
Amy Stewart.
yeah, musical theatre. So my mother, Michael Brown, Amy Stewart, my auntie. So there was lots of sequins and makeup and heels and shoulder pads to play with growing up. So I knew that was my sort of destiny.
Yeah, so I mean, you were born to be on stage, being around that all the time. And you became, so you were very young. And I don't know, if I were you, I'd probably get really niggled by the fact that Simon Cowell's name constantly comes up when people are talking to you. But he was quite pivotal in your early career because you met him so young, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, he was. So I met Simon, but the thing is that I'd actually had two record contracts before I met Simon because I was signed when I was very young, before I was a teenager, to Arista Records, a label called Hansa, by somebody called Steve Rowland, and then I was signed by Magnet Records to do a thing as well. So again, my music career was already going, but I wasn't really happy with the kind of music they had me singing.
Mm.
And I did the demo for So Macho with a guy called George Hargreaves. And when you could just tell something's a hit. And obviously, I'd grown up in the music industry, so I knew that it was just so catchy and I could imagine myself performing it. My labels kind of didn't see me that way. They wanted more of a soul, sort of R&B or a lovers rock kind of music from me. And I was kind of thinking, I don't want to sing about heartbreak and sad things. I want to have fun. And Madonna, of course, was large then. And I was like, I want to be kind of rebellious and crazy and fun, like teenagers are meant to be. And I ended up signing with Simon because he was the one who said, well, you can sing what you like. He
Mm.
was kind of like, I just like the look, the vibe, the energy, and sing what you like. And he understood the club scene so well.
Yeah, I mean that was very grown up of you in your teens because what you were about 16 year
Yeah,
old
yeah.
then to use your voice to be such a strong advocate for yourself. I mean, it seems to me that's what you've always done throughout your career. You've always found your voice.
Yeah, but you know what? I was actually, it's really strange because I sort of am starting to understand now that I'm older how people saw me and how I came across because I was actually really shy, pretty compliant as a performer. Once I was hired to do a job, it was all about being professional, proving I could do it. And, I think being a black child as well, there was always that sort of having to work harder, be better because, they're going to take one black girl, they're not going to take 10. So if you want to be the one that gets through, then. So I actually had a really high work ethic. But I think because all these different labels were chasing me, trying to get me to sign with them, I was I'd done what I was told twice for two different record labels, but I wasn't excited about it. I sort of think, I want to be excited about what I'm doing. I want my friends to be excited about I want to sing the music that they're playing in the club. So it was more from that point of view. And I think he was the first person who kind of spoke to me in that way, like, what do you want to do?
Believed in you.
Just kind of wanted to hear what I was saying. And again, that extends to Stockache and Waterman because, again, it was the first time I was in a studio where people go, so what did you do on the weekend? And I'd be like, huh? Like, what? Because
What
I'm used to
weekend?
just being told, these are the notes, this is what you do, this is what you're singing, this is how I want you to sing it, like, go. And it's how quickly you can deliver it. And I'd be like, oh, well, we went to a club, we went shopping. Oh, what club did you go to? What were you wearing? I was like, really? Well, I was wearing this. And, well, there are lots of guys, well, there are more girls than guys. And then they would write the songs about my life, about what I was doing. So things like, like Toy Boy, the rap, tickets to the club where the Toy Boys are, it was like real life. So it was just a lot of fun suddenly. So as much as I guess I did sort of have a voice and as much as I was pushing for what I wanted. The way it came about was that these were people who genuinely wanted what was going on. They knew we could speak to our generation.
Now, there's not many people in the world that can go by one name. That is quite an achievement. What made you decide that you were going to drop your surname and just have the one name stage name? Kind of ballsy move, really. But if I was to ask 10 people in the street, what do you think Sinitta's surname is, last name is? They probably couldn't tell me, but they would know exactly who you are. That's such a clever move.
You know what? Again, it was an accident at boarding school because we're Americans. So when I came to the UK and went to boarding school, no one even at school, even the teachers, even the headmistress, couldn't say my name properly. So I was Sinatra, Sinitta, Sinsurina. It was always that. So I was nicknamed George. I chose George from the famous Five. You know,
Yes,
Dick and Timmy and George.
absolutely. Lashings
Like,
of
oh my God,
lemonade.
everybody can say George. So I was not Sunita growing up at all because no one could say my name. And then I was saying to my mom, look, I need a stage name. And I'd sort of say, like, maybe I should be called Sunny Spells because you used to always say that at the top of the newspaper in the corner, Sunny Spells. And I was like, that sounds like a stage name. She was like, but Sunita is a stage name. And once you're out there and you're doing it, people will know how to say it. And I was like, oh, okay, okay. And then, of course, Madonna happened. And it was like, well, she's Madonna, Sinita, Madonna. It's not that hard. But it was so exciting to suddenly hear my name said properly on the radio and
I can
things
only
like that. And
imagine,
important
yeah.
people, famous people like Michael Parkinson and, Philip Schofield, presenters and people on the news saying Sinita. It was like, wow.
That's amazing. Well, you have been famous for 4 decades, nearly 5 decades coming up. You've been in the
Yeah.
public eye a long time, and for many reasons, because of your talent, because of your singing, your dancing, your acting, also because of your high profile dating. You have dated some of the most eligible, gorgeous men in the world, including Brad Pitt, including David Essex. These days, well, I was going to ask you, how about those highs and lows of fame? Because you were very young and the profile of you was so clearly in the public eye. How did that affect you? And this is before social media was as brutal as it is now. Did you still feel, yes, but did you still feel like that spotlight was hard to deal with at times? You've been quite vocal about sort of what you have been through over the years. And I think that is part of what I love about you is that you're very authentic. You have a voice, you use it for women. But how has those highs and lows of fame really affected you and driven you?
Do you know, it was really weird because in the beginning, no, I would say throughout. It's a double-edged sword because it's very exciting. Can you imagine? It's like being the most popular girl in school. Everybody knows your name. You're not the sort of weird girl over there. Cabbies are sort of going, "All right, Sneha, how you doing, love?" And it's lovely, and I loved it, and it was exciting. But you also got sort of horrible headlines sometimes or people saying nasty things. And on those days, I literally wouldn't want to leave the house because it felt like the whole world was talking about you and that the whole world was going to be sort of looking and going, oh, look, there she is over there. But Simon was really cool because he would sort of say, look, babe, it's tomorrow's fish and chip. Hey, so you've got to just sort of rise above it. And the good thing is, in those days, it really was because it did those stories didn't linger forever like they do now on social media. If they get it wrong, it's there forever and it can be Googled for the rest of your life, and your whole history can be rewritten, and it must be a nightmare. But I did used to struggle because you want all the nice things and the pretty pictures, and you don't want the ones when you're falling out of the club because you drank too much or your knickers are tucked in your pants and all that kind of stuff. So it was weird, and also I was kind of taught to court the press. I was provocative, I was cheeky. I liked to stick my tongue out at photographers and all this kind of stuff because I knew them so well. It was like the same sort of pack of guys that would be everywhere, and they'd be all sort of smart and proper when you were coming out of, say, the Royal Variety Show. When you were at a nightclub, they'd be bumping into you, sort of almost tripping you up, trying to take a picture. But I knew them by name, so they were kind of like this pack of wolves that were your mates. Yeah, so it was hard because you didn't really want to complain because sometimes they were making you look lovely and celebrating.
Yeah. Well, you navigated it very well, and your work ethic has seen you all the way through. I mean, you've never really been out of work from, the research that I've done. You seem to be constantly working on projects. And of course, you were part of the X Factor for 14 years. How was that?
Do you know what? I would say that's one of the real highlights because I've always been interested in helping and sort of pushing talent. Even before doing the X Factor, I used to discover so many artists. Like people don't realize I was behind Brass, Yaz, Snap, the I Got the Powers.
Yes.
Discovered Miley, Daniel Bedingfield, Natasha Bedingfield, Ragiv. I'm sure I've forgotten someone, but I've always been kind of and also because I used to sing at church, so I had lots of, I was the worship leader in church, so I was in charge of the choir and who got to sing and things like that. So I was always spotting people and thinking, gosh, oh, Griff, one of my most recent stars is little Griff, who just won, I think our second Brit Award. And so I was always bringing people to Simon, sort of saying, you've got to hear my friend sing, they're really great, because I think, my record company will sign you. But it's really weird because he never signed any of my friends, and yet I never bought him a dad, and every single one of them went on to become superstars. So I think he kind of went, you know what, we're going to do the X Factor. We're going to be, rearing and creating sort of new pop stars. I know who I need on my team.
Yeah. So you have a great instinct for
And really love it. It's nothing, because when you've experienced it yourself, I knew what it was like to sort of have this yearning to do something and be out there. So when you meet kids who've really got it, you just sort of, you want to help, you want to get involved.
Well, I think that speaks volumes to the way that you have become known as a woman who supports other women. You like empowering other women. And one of those platforms that you have created is Sin's Angels, which intrigues me. Tell us a bit more about that. How does it work? Who are you trying to help here?
Well, so Sin's Angels, it's kind of always evolving and it's recent incarnation. Well, Sin's Angels was a community for older women because I sort of felt like, what, like you said, I'm always working, so I'm lucky, I'm always out there doing things. But, what about that? The reality is you do kind of get pushed to the side, once you're no longer the young hot thing. All the new people are being ushered through. I did have a period where I looked too young to play the mum, but was too old to play the young hot thing anymore. And you're in that sort of weird spot. But it's like, what are you supposed to do? I sort of thought, well, if I'm in this position, there's other women who are also going through this. And then, of course, there's menopause and all these things that nobody talks to you about when you're young. You just sort of think, well, one day you get old and it's just not very nice. But actually, as I got older, I felt like life was getting better. I was feeling better. I was more confident because I was excruciatingly shy and having to use my being an actress to kind of overcome the shy. Well, now I'll play the part of a pop star. I'll play the part of an actress. So that's how I could do my interviews and things like that, be very professional. But if you just sort of talk to me backstage, it would be like, oh, it's this very quiet sort of person. But I sort of found my confidence, especially being single for like 8 years, lockdown. I had all this time to just grow and not have to worry about what anyone thought of me, and kind of found myself and just thought, well, if I've been through this, I'm sure other women have. And everyone I spoke to was sort of going, oh my God, yeah, me too, me too, me too. So it was like, well, why don't we have something? Why isn't there a TV show? I mean, we've got Sex in the City. That's pretty much it.
Women in their 50s, we're only halfway through. We're not halfway done, are we? We've got so many decades of growth.
So many decades of growth, better sex, better everything, better acceptance. And when I say sex, it's not because you're getting more sex, but it's actually getting more the kind of sex you want, because you can actually, you realize you're not just there to please the man, that it is about you and not just you looking good in really uncomfortable underwear. It was just like so liberating.
Just finding yourself, really, isn't it? And that effort filter. When you lose that and you just start being you and doing the things that you want to do, it's actually fulfilling for everybody. It's for your partner and for you. It's and your family.
Everyone goes, oh my God, you're not so crazy now. What my kids say, oh, you've chilled out. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't chilled, but you're a bit kind of strong because you're trying to play all these parts. And also you kind of realize, listen, I'm not never going to be perfect. I'm never going to always get it right. I'm just going to do my best. And so Sins Angels is kind of that place to come together and do that. So far, it's just been a website. It's going to become events and a tour where I get the musical tours I've been doing last year and this year. I got to meet so many women. So many people came out to see us, and it was so touching because you don't, I suppose I also hadn't really realized that I was part of so many people's childhood, that happy days when life was fun and easy. And now it's still there too. And it's like, I kind of almost wanted to have a disco, when you want to have a club where we could all go and dance like we used to and dress up and just do it again. The Things Angels is kind of becoming that place where we can all still meet, we can reminisce, we can talk about, but now we can complain about our kids or celebrate our kids, depending what day it is. A bit of both, depends which kid, sometimes different kid each day. But it's just like really, really nice because I didn't really have that growing up. And also in my day, as they call it, we were taught to sort of try to be perfect or to appear to be perfect. We were there, to make people happy and you've got perfect little lives and a perfect little smile. And it's that now people are so much more open and real and communicate and they help each other. And I just thought, oh, wow, I can finally drop my guard and it's okay to have a fat day or a bad hair day or a can't be bothered day and all that stuff.
Just to be real.
Yeah.
You mentioned just there about your kids, and this will be another iteration of you coming up because they're 18 now, I believe.
Lord, here we go.
And you'll be facing an empty nest. How do you feel about that?
I mean, there's a bit of me that's like, yay. And there's another part that's like, oh, wow. Because, like the other day, there were 2 articles in the newspaper about Magdalena. We were invited by Raymond Blanc to watch Chelsea play Arsenal at the football pitch, and he's the chef there. So we went, and Piers was there and a few others, and she took a picture with Piers, and I posted on my social media. She's they picked it up, and she's out there, and she's being approached to do shows and this and that.
Just from that one post, it just snowballed.
Sort of excited, I'm excited for her. I'm terrified for her. You want to protect her. I want to let her go. I don't want to burst her bubble, but I also kind of want to warn her. And it's just it's such a weird thing that you sort of think we're all going to go through that, but mine's just going to have that added thing of it probably being
magnified,
Yeah.
in the public eye more. Yeah, how do you feel about, them potentially leaving you've got 2, Magdalena and Zach, haven't you?
Yes.
To leave home at some stage. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I had a contingency plan. They're not really going to leave her. They can go on holiday, they can go and stay with their friends, but I'm like, but you should live here. There's a lot of space, there's enough room, you know. But I think they'll travel and do a lot. I'm thinking a lot of freedom might negate the need to actually go, but it's probably not realistic, right?
And as bigger kids, bigger problems. You want a tracker on them, don't you? You want to know where they are. You want them to have freedom, but as long as you know exactly where they are.
Yeah, but my daughter's amazing. She does that. She has this thing where she sends me, and she's slightly condescending with it. It's like, I'm going out, but don't worry, I've pinged you the location thing so you can see where I am at all times. If I get kidnapped, you can track where they take me and this sort of thing. Whereas my son is just like, I'm a man. And I'm like, the fact that you're saying you're a man shows that you're still a baby.
So true. That's so true. Now, coming up, I believe you've got a book in your future. Have you written it? Are you about to write it? What's happening?
It's a book that's been going on and on and on and on. It was called, well, it might still be called Who Put the Sin in Sinitta. But the things just keep happening in life where you think, okay, let's deliver that book, and then something else happens. And so it's more that I'm continuing to write it and kind of thinking, I really do want to do this because I want to make sure that I tell my story rather than it's put together from the bits of this, that, and, even Wikipedia, like everybody can just add and delete whatever they want to. And I think it's important to be the author of your own story.
Write your own chapters. Looking back, is there an outstanding thing? What's the biggest highlight, do you think, looking back on your life? And I know there's many, and I'm putting you on the spot, but is there something that you think, cannot believe that happened to me or I did that?
Gosh, every week because you get these throwback pictures that hit you. Um, so there's lots of things regularly. I mean, obviously there's the big things like adopting my children after miscarrying and IVF failures and da 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 da. That one day, 2 weeks after meeting them for the first time, you're suddenly in a car driving off with two children in car seats in the back seat, and you feel like you've stolen them because you're just like,
Are they really mine?
just it, because they kind of go, there are your babies, bye, and off you go. So that was pretty surreal, and I don't think I let them sleep for the first week. Was in and out of the room, because when you sort of want them to go, do they have to go to bed? Should we wake them up? So that was pretty crazy. Getting to play my Meaty in Mutiny on the Bounty. Um,
And again, you were very, very young. That's when you met David Essex, isn't it?
Weirdest thing is I had his poster on my walls growing up, and his poster was still on my wall when I got the role.
Did you tell him?
No, I couldn't really say much to him. I was so in awe of him and so shy that it was ridiculous. And I kept thinking, I'm going to have to kiss him. And I was horrified, mortified, even though I dreamed one day of marrying him and all of this. When he was actually there in front of me, it was awful. I was like, this is enough. The director would sort of say, can you just stand a little closer to David? And I kind of inch closer, and they go, you're going to have to. And I think they said to him, look, take her out. Talk to her, make friends with her because she's petrified of you. But it was just like, it's him.
But you ended up dating, so you obviously got over your shyness.
Well, again, like I said, I was just happy to be there. And the fact that he wanted to date me was just like, I think I just lost my mind. It was all like it wasn't really happening. That year, I was doing Mutiny, I was dating David, I had a number 2 record in the charts, I had a children's TV show on what was then called Thames TV, Thames TV. It was all just it was like watching my life in a dream.
And yet
Yeah.
you didn't spiral. You kept your head together. Is that is that your mother's influence? Did she keep you grounded? Or is it the way that you were brought up? Or are you just strong like that? Because many others could have turned to all kinds of things and spiraled, but you kept going.
I mean, I was naughty. I mean, borderline bad. I was doing everything that all the other teenagers were doing. The
So there was
difference
some sin in Sinitta.
there was a lot of sin, trust me. But I had a job to do. So that was the difference. So, if we partied all night, I'd be the one going, I've got to go to bed because I've got TVAM with Mad Lizzie,
Oh,
at
I
six
remember Mad
o'clock in
Liz.
the morning and all of this. So I'd have to go to bed eventually and that kind of thing. I think the fact that I had a high work ethic really helped me. And people like Arlene Phillips were as a mentor. She was brutal in those days. She didn't. You had to turn up and you had to deliver. So I think having those sort of strict mentors always meant that I always saw it as a job. I don't think I really felt like a star or a pop star. I felt like, wow, if this keeps going, I'm never going to have to get a proper job.
Yeah. Well, look, well done you. You have continued for decades. You are always thinking of something new. You're always working hard in another musical, another production, writing a book, creating movements for women. And what I really like about you is that you do support women. You don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk as well. So keep doing that.
Girl, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.